Hey everybody, grab your Bible and a pencil and a journal and maybe even a cup of coffee and join in on our conversation. But first, I would like for you to write this down. Ruth, chapter 2, verses 8 through 11. Then Boaz said to Ruth, "Listen carefully, my daughter. Do not go to glean in another field. Furthermore, do not go on from this one, but stay here with my maids. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and go after them. Indeed, I have commanded the servants not to touch you. When you are thirsty, go to the water jars and drink from what the servants draw." Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, "Why have I found favor in your sight, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner?" And Boaz answered and said to her, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully reported to me, and how you left your father and your mother and the land of your birth and came to a people that you did not previously know."
Hey everyone, welcome to Write This Down with Dot Bowen. My name is Cara. I am Dot's daughter. And every week we sit down together and we have a conversation about God's love, about the Bible, about what God is teaching us. And we are continuing to talk about the book of Ruth. And in this episode, we dive into chapter 2, which has a lot to do with Ruth, not as much with Naomi, but we do really look at this chapter through the lens of Naomi. But we really see how God is redeeming everything, how he is the creator, how he's always creating something new. He's always making good out of our pain. And so we really see that in this chapter. And so we would love for you to pull up a chair and join in our conversation.
Wow.
You like Boaz?
He's a good man. I don't know if he was cute or not, but boy, I like his heart.
I was going to say, a lot of people sometimes like have this view of Boaz as like he's like this man that comes and like sweeps Ruth off his feet, like probably like,
yeah, not so much.
But he probably was not very attractive. Like, I think he's like old, right?
Well, yeah. And he says to her, like, "Why would you notice me?" And this is, later on.
Yeah.
And because of, you could go after younger men.
Yeah. Like, I think yes, he is a good man and he will get to all that later, and there's more to just looks. But it also is like, I don't think he's like this strikingly handsome man who's like sweeping her off her feet.
I agree. And he says that about himself. So we'll see that
he's
next.
Like,
yeah. But I will say that how God is setting this up. I mean, we go from God has, struck me dead. I mean, God has just literally taken everything from him, totally have zero, nothing. And God did. I mean, I'm not saying that God did that. I do know that she definitely was empty. Yeah. I mean, her son's gone.
Wasn't.
Yeah. Nothing's going to bring the sons back or her husband. But I will say that within 1 week, there's just a little bit of glimmer, a little bit of hope. And Boaz hears what Ruth is doing and he's so impressed. And, I think about Ruth, how that Ruth is like, she's just doing it. She she does not know how God is working, and she doesn't know that God has given the people talk about it. They noticed it. You can do a lot of great things and nobody noticed it. But I see the hand of God here. I see that God has made Boaz aware of it. He's made the people aware of it. And Ruth is just being Ruth because we know she was going to work and she loved Naomi, and she's just being who she is. But, you just never know how God uses certain things. I just find a lot of hope in chapter 2.
I think if we go back to, again, I read Ruth more through Naomi's eyes.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking
she is one lucky woman.
I'm thinking of Naomi sitting at home.
Mm-hmm.
Ruth is like, I'm gonna go find a field and just start picking.
We're hungry. Yeah. I mean, you can sit here all day long. You may not be hungry because you're grieving, but I'm hungry.
Well, she may be old. I mean, I don't know that Naomi, maybe she couldn't go. I mean, yeah, I'm sure
I don't think she could go, but I just think Ruth is like, I'm
saying,
hungry.
I'm thinking of Naomi being at home and Ruth has gone out. She's like, I'm going to go get the food.
Mm-hmm.
And Naomi has no idea, like, the chess pieces that are falling into place.
No.
While
Nor
she's at
Ruth.
home.
Yeah.
And No, but Ruth is living it out. I mean, she knows a little, like she's living it. So she has a little bit more of an idea. But I'm just talking about Naomi. Like she doesn't know what field. I mean, she comes home and she's like, what field did you go to? How did it go? Tell me the situation. And then she realizes, wait, like Boaz, like he's actually our redeemer. So then it but I'm just saying, like, so many times, like it's that perspective of we don't know
what God's doing,
what God is doing, how he's placing all that. And for Naomi specifically, because she's the one who's bitter and hopeless, and she's at home and she's probably just sitting there thinking like, oh, Ruth has just gone out to go get us some food. And like all the while, like Ruth just happens to stumble on. And I also feel like I love the timing of it, because at the end of chapter 1, it says, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest, which I think is a very important detail.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons.
She wouldn't be reaping.
Yeah, like there wouldn't be any food to reap. There wouldn't be any fields. And I love that. Like, I just love like God's grace in that, and love, like God's love, where it's like Naomi is so, like we said, she's bitter. She's down and out about life. She can see how there could be no good, no redemption, no restoration to her story or life. But God is still like gracious to her.
Merciful.
In that, and merciful. And just the timing of like, they didn't even realize, like they were just going back to Bethlehem and they didn't even, I don't think that they were thinking like, oh, let's go back at the beginning of barley harvest.
No.
Yeah, like because they're so consumed with, at least Naomi's like so consumed with her grief and bitterness. Anyway, I love that detail where it's like the right timing of it. And even though Naomi's like not in a good place, like God still uses it. God is still gracious. God is still like, you don't even see me right now, like in any capacity, but I'm still going to like lead you here. Like you don't even know what I'm doing, like the timing of it all. And I don't know, it's just.
Yeah, you know what I was thinking, Cara? You're thinking about Naomi. And I was thinking about God, and this is that I was thinking about. It's a good thing I'm not God. I mean, on many levels, but I would probably, knowing me, and I always say, my sisters and I talk about this, like Dad just popped up, Dad's in heaven, but Dad and me just popped up, because I would be going, you think I'm so bad? You think I've afflicted you? You think I've just taken...
Oh, like if you're God.
Yeah, if I was God and you've talked terrible about me, like you're mad at me, you're blaming me, you're talking terrible about me, you think your life's so terrible and you don't even know what I'm doing. And yet God is not like that at all. He understands. He's like, she's hurting. Her sons are going. She's, grieving. And out of grace and mercy, he gets them in a situation. And he not only puts them in the right field and with the reapers, but the fact that, Boaz, the man that he is already, like this is a man, godly man, because he said, don't leave this field. Don't go to another field.
Well, there's
like, he doesn't know Ruth. Yeah, he didn't know Ruth. He didn't want her. He said, you're a single girl. You're out. You're trying to do, get food for your mother-in-law, and I've heard about what you're doing, but you don't realize, but you're in a very dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Because she was in a different country. She was a Moabite, and it's just like how he's beginning now to redeem her. She doesn't even know it, and he doesn't know it, but God knows it.
Yeah, just the protection of it. Well, I think too, like her reputation precedes herself. You know, so because like he had heard. Yeah, like she had, I'm sure she stuck out like a sore thumb. Everyone knew she was an Israelite. Everyone knew she's not from these parts.
She's not Jewish.
Yeah.
And look what she's doing with her mother-in-law. I mean, that's so
like
taking care of her mother-in-law. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Boaz says. I've heard how you're taking care of your mother-in-law.
I know. But I think just what she looks like was more, I was going to say like the danger of like someone easily would take advantage of her. Someone easily would, it wasn't safe for her. But on top of that, because I think Boaz was a good man, but I think also I think he would have protected her anyway, but then on top of the fact of what he had heard about how she had,
Right.
like what she had done with
Taking
Naomi,
care.
like taking care of her and coming, like leaving her country to come to Israel. Like, I think there's like an element, like respect there too, where I think he would have protected her, but I think he like kind of goes above and beyond because he's like,
you're a good woman.
Yeah.
I think he's like, you're a good woman. I'm going to protect you. I'm saying what you say. And, he could have, he's a family member of Naomi. So he definitely appreciated, I'm sure, of what Ruth was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he knew that he was a redeemer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he
knew,
well, he does know that he was family, but there was one closer, we'll find that out later on. But there's a relative that was closer than Boaz that he'll, that could redeem
I'm just saying, like, he knew, because if Naomi knew that, like I would assume that he would have known that too,
right.
Which we'll get into the whole redeemer thing later. But I do think, I just like imagine too, when like Ruth comes home and she's like, this is what's happened. Like she didn't know what she's saying. She's like, oh yeah, this man, Boaz, was really kind. And I have like two thoughts. One, I'm sure the light in Naomi's eyes started to come back, because then I bet in that moment she realizes, wait, maybe there's another way that God could redeem my story. Maybe there's another way that God could come through that I never thought about. But it also is convicting to me, because what I want in my faith and in my relationship with the Lord is I want to, even in grief, I want to believe that God could come through before I see how he does it. Because, I mean, maybe Naomi's heart, like I said last week, I think there's maybe an element of softness to her heart, because she does see the fact that he's a redeemer. Like, she does see it. And in order to see it, like maybe there was like some softening to her heart to some degree. I'm sure she was still bitter. But I think if it was like still super hard, her heart, I don't know that she would have seen it. She could have just been like, something else to complain about or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know, like maybe she did see it before, but from what we just see face value, we don't have any indication that maybe she had started to have hope before this. But I
do think that Naomi asked Ruth, where did you go? And she told him, and she said, what field are you in? And she told him. And so then when she went on to say, I've seen how you've taken care of your mother-in-law. And she tells Naomi, this and everything. In my mind, Naomi is looking for her mother of the bride dress. I mean, like the minute it's like, okay, now we got hope here.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like the light in her eye of like, wait, like, because she said in chapter 1, she basically says the only way that God can make, like, this was her view of like, this is how God can redeem the situation. And that seems impossible, as if Naomi gets married and pregnant and has another son, it never even crossed her mind that there would be another way that God could redeem Ruth's story, let alone her own. So then when chapter 2 happens and Ruth comes back and is like, hey, I actually was at this guy's field, and Naomi realizes who that is. Yeah, like in that moment, I think she's like, wait, this is how God could redeem all of this, through Boaz being a redeemer.
Right. But I want to back up just a little bit. Nothing, not Ruth, not God, not Boaz, not Ben in Bethlehem, not the harvest, nothing is going to bring back her son, 2 sons, and her husband. Right. So redeeming the time or giving hope, yes, it means that maybe they won't starve to death. It does mean that Ruth could, marry someone. In other words, I think Naomi's like, you know what? She's beginning to see there's a new chapter in my life. And I'm never going to have my husband back, and I'm never going to have my sons back. And here's this Ruth that's with me, and she's loving me, and she's not going to leave. I have a new life. It's different.
Yeah.
But it's
a new normal.
It's a new normal. And now I'm, thankful that Ruth didn't listen to me. I'm sure she thought, I'm glad that she's not, that she didn't go. But I just want to point out that the redeeming part isn't making what she lost come back. It's just a new, different thing. It's just, and we're going to see at the end, it's great. Like she's one happy woman at the end of the spoiler alert. But I just, we still have to grieve. We still have to grieve the loss of something. But now God is encouraging her and challenging her to say, hey, let's don't look back. Let's move forward. And you can grieve what you've lost because you have. But I can give you a new life. It doesn't mean it's better. The fact that Ruth meets Boaz and they're not starving, that's good. That's all great. And we know at the end, we know she didn't know it at the time, but she had to still be in the healing process of realizing that my husband and my sons aren't coming back. Now what? I think
same thing for Ruth. Ruth lost her husband.
Right.
So yeah, nothing can replace that. But I think it's God making good out of the bad.
Yeah.
The whole Romans 8 thing, like not all things are good, but he can make all things good for his glory. Yeah.
He's got a plan. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I think the point of, or what I see in it is like, we don't know how God is going to bring good out of it. And I think that's a lot of times and I think that's what Naomi didn't. I don't think. Yeah. And that was the whole thing of what I was just saying is she had an idea of how this is how this could go well for either of us. And that's not at all what God did. And we just don't know how God's going to redeem a situation or restore the time or heal or bring about good or whatever it is.
What he has planned for us. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we just don't know like what is happening. And I have to remind myself of that on the daily.
We talk about this a lot. And, I read and listen a lot to Tyler Staton. And I love the fact that this statement, and I fall back on it a lot, in the fact that he says that Jesus came not to show us a God that we could understand, but to show us a God that we could trust. And I think that's huge. I think when we're in a grieving moment and, you say, I'm looking through the eyes of Naomi. I don't think Naomi understands, and none of us do, but like the why. We sometimes will not get the answers to our why. But here's just where she is. It's just like her sons are gone and her husband's gone. She's got a daughter-in-law and she's hungry. And she could either sit there and die or she can move forward. And I think that when Ruth said, I'm going to go in this field and do this, I think you said this last week, where Ruth was kind of like being Jesus to her, like Ruth is going to stay in there. Ruth is going to encourage her. And I think for Naomi and for Ruth to say, I'm going to go and, reap this harvest, she became her strength for that moment. Now, I think later on, Naomi gains her own strength back. But I think that at that moment, it's just that glimmer of hope or someone saying, hey, you can do this. Like, hey, we don't have to just sit here and die and starve to death. I'm going to go out in the field. And Naomi might be like, oh, go ahead. But I do believe, again, and this is the theme of Ruth, in my opinion. Somebody said it's a love story. I think it is a love story. But I think one of the themes that run all the way through these little 4 chapters, and that is you never know what God is doing. And even when we get to chapter 4, the story continues. I mean, what's happening right now, and I'm not going to, talk about it later, but this is huge in God's plan. And God is being faithful to who he is and to his promise. And I think
there's more to it. There's more at stake.
Yeah. And I think that they don't realize that God's being faithful to his character and who he is and his plan, but they will know. But I think at this moment, that's one of the things we can look back and learn and go, you know what? God has a plan for us. He loves us. He wants what's best for us. And even though I don't understand how these circumstances could ever play a part of a better or good story, or even just,
Well, I don't know how God can make good out of this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things we have to remember.
I think like what you're saying a minute ago, that doesn't mean that it was good that her husband and her sons died.
Or that she's not still missing him because Boaz decided to feed her.
It's just that God was able to say, like, yes, that's still, she's going to grieve that till the day she dies.
Right.
Or the day she did die, but till the day she died. Because that's human. I mean,
so it is.
Of course. And so, but it was like God saying, like, but you're still going to be able to enjoy my goodness and be a part of my story, be a part of what I'm doing in the world, even though this tragedy has, come about. Like, I'm still going to give you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things is that when, we talked about last week about bitterness and how we can't see past our pain, as and we don't see any hope that it's ever going to get better. We're mad at God, we're mad at the world, we're mad at the circumstances, we're just mad. And I think that keeps us sometimes continually to hurt. I think when we begin maybe still hurt, but we don't get bitter, we don't feel hopelessness. I think when we begin to somehow stop and go, I don't know how you're going to do this. I don't see any good in this. I don't know how you're going to change this around. But God, I believe you will. And I think that you and I, we look at what we can figure out. We look at what has happened or what's happened in the past. And we assume that whatever's happened in the past, that's what's going to happen in the future. Or that's what's going to happen right now. And that's not true. And it's not true of God's character. God is doing something. God doesn't just sit around and idle. He's moving forward, and he's got something for us that is good.
One of the things that I have to remind myself in the character of God is that he is a creator. And that does not mean just that he creates beings or animals or
the world.
Mm-hmm. The world. Yeah. But he's always creating something new. So something new in your situation, something like he can make something out of nothing. Like that's what a creator does. You create something out of nothing. If you're an artist and you're creating art, you got a blank canvas. If you're, whatever your thing is that you're creating, it's usually out of nothing. And so I have to remind myself that of his character, of like, that's who he is. That's not just kind of like when we say at times, like, God is love. Like, it's not just, he's not just loving, he is love. It's the same thing. It's like, he is a creator. Like, he is constantly creating new. And yeah, I have to remind myself of that. But I also think, I don't know this, so I don't want to interject on scripture, but based off of Naomi's little bit that we see, I feel like she's probably really honest with the Lord.
Oh, 100%.
And so I also think, this is kind of like piggybacking on even last week's conversation of like how to not be bitter. I think it's being completely honest with the Lord. And like you were saying, like if being mad, if you're mad, tell God, don't stay in it. I think that's how it helps you not to stay in it, is to be like, God,
you're saying it to get out of it. You're not
to
saying
get out of it. Right. But if you're mad, tell him, like talk to him about it. And I think, that was what Naomi did. That probably was one of the things that helped her get out of bitterness. One of the things that helped her to see what God was doing eventually. Maybe one of the reasons why God gave grace on her is because she stayed in the room with him, even though she was bitter, even though she, hated everything. It seems like she stayed in the room with him. And what, when we say that, we mean like she pressed it. She continued to talk to, whether that was, prayer, trusting, whatever that looked like in her at that time. But for us, I think it's being completely honest with where your heart's at, like with him, and bringing him with him, bringing him into those moments and allowing him to speak into it or heal it or do, whatever he wants to do with it. But I think that's like a large piece that we have to do when we're grieving or bitter or even happy if you're happy.
That's right. We talk about staying in the room, wrestling with God. I remember so many years ago, before you were born, asking God on a continually basis to Velcro himself to me. I'm like, God, you just got to stick, because I might let go. And I remember just so often wanting to let go, but I would ask God, and because that was my heart, I didn't want to let go. And, when you're saying about being honest with God, I think you're honest with God with the intent of, I don't want to just go tell you off, even though that maybe some people do. But I want to tell you how I'm feeling so that we can start the healing process. We can move out of this. I don't want to be this miserable. I don't want to not trust you. I don't want to be bitter. But here's where we are. And then we move from that. I think we have to remind ourselves, you said God is a creator and he does things. God has a plan for our lives. I mean, he said to Jeremiah, the plans I give to you is to give you hope. And I think as we go through all of Scripture, God is very faithful. You're saying, Ruth was faithful to Naomi, yes. And I think that more importantly, God was so faithful to them and faithful to his word. And I know that God has been extremely faithful to me when I haven't been faithful to him. And I think, leaning on the heart of God, of being able to say, I don't know what you're doing, but I do believe that I can trust you. Can you show me how I can trust you? And I do believe through that process, you may not see clearly everything and clearly feel God's presence and clearly see God in certain situations, but you'll see a little bit of light and to move forward. And I think that that's kind of what Naomi is. I think she's getting a little glimmer of light. Like, oh, I never thought about Boaz. I never thought about,
I never thought about
family.
That there could be a redeemer that could,
that
even
could
if it's just
save
for
us.
Ruth. Yeah.
That's right.
Because obviously she loved and cared for Ruth. And I mean,
Very
that goes
much.
back to like even in the chapter 1 where she's like, not even for herself, but she was like, don't stay with me because
I'm thinking of you.
Yeah,
My life's over with. Yeah.
Yeah.
In her mind, she thought her life was over with.
Yeah.
I think it's encouraging. I think we want to give hope. We want to understand that there are people that have entered in this conversation with me and you, that you and I, we've been there, done that. We've seen and experienced life. If you're breathing, you're going to experience some disappointment. You're going to experience heartache. You're going to experience people deceiving you, people leaving you, people hurting you, people taking advantage of you, people lying to you. I mean, that's life. That's life. This isn't heaven. And I don't think you want to get to a place where, like, I'm not going to hurt anymore. I think that's a dangerous place. You don't want to put walls up, but it's not fun to hurt. You and I, we'd walk, I don't know what we would do to try to run from pain, but we would. I don't even like to run, but I'd try to find some way.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't outrun it. We can't outrun the pain and the suffering that sin has brought into this world. We can't. But we can walk with God and we can trust him. And when there's no hope as far as life changing, we have hope because we have Jesus. And he can, like you said, he can change all things. And he does. And when I think about from Genesis to Revelation, God's always talking about moving forward. And, had Naomi not moved to, with her husband to Moab, she wouldn't have met Ruth. Didn't look so good at the time. I mean, she looks at what happened, but she got Ruth. Then she moves back thinking, well, all I've got is Ruth. I don't have anything else. And now God's about to give her some other wonderful things. And so I think you can stay where you are or you can move forward. And I think if you're walking with God, you're moving forward. And how many steps or how long it takes or, one step at a time. but you got to move forward. One of the things, as I think in the past year, has been that I feel like if there's one thing that God has said to me almost every morning, and I think the reason He says it to me every morning is because I'm so hard-headed, but every single morning, don't look back, don't look in the past, move forward, move forward. I keep thinking in my own personal life, that God keeps saying, it's not like it was. It's not. Your life's different, and you got to move forward. And that's where Jesus is. Jesus was in the past. Jesus was very actively in my past, and Jesus is very actively in my present. But if I'm going to walk with Him and grasp hold of all that God has for me, I've got to get out of the past and stop comparing what I think my present's like and what my future might be based on what my past was like. That's not the determining factor. The determining factor of my present life and what will be the determining factor of my life in the future will be the presence of God and what He's doing. And I'm just going to work with Him about doing it. And part of me working with it, Cara, is just not looking back. It didn't work well with Lot's wife. It's not going to work well with me. And I think every single morning, God's like, move forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't mean you forget.
You can't forget the past.
Yeah, because it's not like Naomi is going to forget her husband or her sons. Or
not one bit.
But
they don't have to control their present.
Stay there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thanks for listening. I'm so glad that you could be a part of our conversation. To continue the conversation, you can find Dot on social media at .bowen or visit her website, dotbowen.com. Subscribe, like, and share with your friends, and we will see you next week on Write This Down with Dot Bowen.